1961, he enrolled at Morton Junior College in Cicero to become a medical X-ray technician, but he dropped out after 2 years. He moved to Kansas City in 1964 and married Nancy Jo Lynch, who bore him their first child, John Jr., in 1965, and twins Christopher and Christine in 1971. Using forged credentials, he obtained a job as an X-ray technician at Dr. Wallace Graham's medical practice in Kansas City, where he embezzled $33,000. He was sentenced to probation for 3 years. In 1970, Robinson violated probation by moving back to Chicago without his probation officer's permission or knowledge, and took a job as an insurance salesman at Airbay Jones Company. But in 1971, he was arrested again for embezzlement from that firm and ordered back to Kansas City, where his probation was extended. He was arrested again in 1975 on charges of securities fraud and mail fraud in connection with a phony medical consulting company he had formed in Kansas City. In this period, Robinson cultivated and maintained the outward appearance of a civic-minded, family-oriented citizen. He became a scoutmaster, baseball coach, and Sunday school teacher. In 1977, he got on the board of directors of a local charity. He forged a series of letters from its executive director to the mayor of Kansas City and from the mayor to other civic leaders, praising his generous volunteer efforts. Eventually, he had himself named the organization's Man of the Year and threw a festive awards luncheon in his own honor. After completing probation in 1979, Robinson was arrested again in 1980 on multiple counts, including embezzlement and check forgery, for which he served 60 days in jail in 1982. To pay for his dying wife's health care, he set up a bogus hydroponic business and swindled a friend out of $25,000 for a quick investment return. At this time, he reportedly began sexually propositioning many of his neighbors' wives, triggering a fistfight with one of the husbands. He also joined a sadomasochistic cult called the International Council of Masters, and became its slave master, whose duties included luring victims to gatherings where they were tortured and raped by cult members. After starting 2 more fictitious shell companies, Aquaplus and Equa2, Robinson hired Paula Godfrey, 19, ostensibly to work as a sales representative. Godfrey told her family and friends that Robinson was sending her away for training. After she didn't return, Godfrey's parents filed a missing person report. A few days later, the police received a typewritten letter signed by Godfrey, thanking Robinson for his help, stating that she was okay and did not wish to see her family. The investigation was closed because Godfrey was of legal age and there was no evidence of wrongdoing. No trace of Paula Godfrey has ever been found. In 1985, under the name John Osborne, Robinson met Lisa Stasi and her 4-month-old daughter, Tiffany, at a battered women's shelter in Kansas City. After promising her a job in Chicago, an apartment, and daycare for her baby, he asked her to sign several blank sheets of paper. For a $5,500 fee to an imaginary lawyer, Don and Helen Robinson received Tiffany Stasi and a set of authentic appearing adoption papers with the forged signatures of 2 lawyers and a judge. Lisa Stasi was never heard from again. Catherine Klimpit, 27, relocated from Wichita Falls, Texas, to Kansas City to find employment in 1987. She was hired by Robinson, who reportedly promised her extensive traveling and a new wardrobe. She was reported missing in June of that year. Her case remains open today. Robinson now roamed the internet under the name Slave Master, looking for women who enjoyed playing the submissive partner role in sex. The first victim he met online was Sheila Faith, 45, whose daughter Debbie, 15, uses a wheelchair due to spina bifida. As a wealthy man, he promised to support them, pay for Debbie's therapy, and give Sheila a job. As soon as they moved from Fullerton, California, to Kansas City in 1994, they disappeared. Robinson cashed Faith's pension checks for the next 7 years. Gradually, Robinson became well known in the increasingly popular BDSM online chat rooms. In 1999, he offered Isabella Lewicka, a 21-year-old Polish immigrant living in Indiana, a job and a bondage relationship. When she moved to Kansas City, the still-married Robinson gave her an engagement ring and brought her to the county registrar, where they paid for a marriage license that was never picked up. It is unclear whether Lewicka believed she and Robinson were married. She told her parents she had married, but did not mention her husband's name. She did sign a 115-item slave contract that gave Robinson almost total control over every aspect of her life, including her bank accounts. During the summer of 1999, she disappeared. Robinson told a web designer he employed that she had been caught smoking marijuana and deported. At the same time Luica vanished, Robinson convinced Suzette Trouten to move from Michigan to Kansas to travel the world together. Robinson later told Trouten's mother that she ran off with an acquaintance after stealing money from him. At 10:15 a.m. the 2nd of June, 2000, two police officers knocked on the door of John Robinson Sr. at 36 Monterey Lane, Santa Barbara Estates, Kansas, and informed him that he had been arrested. Later, he would be charged with aggravated sexual battery against two women. His wife, Nancy, would be brought in for questioning, but offered nothing to investigate. The next day, detectives and forensic investigators arrived at Robinson's farm in La Cena. Cadaver dogs would quickly locate 5 large metal barrels. Upon opening the first barrel, a naked, blindfolded, decomposing body would lie face down in the fetal position. A second barrel revealed another body that was also decomposing. For autopsy, the bodies are removed from the scene and taken to Dr. Donald Podman. During the weekend, search warrants were signed to search a storage locker owned by Robinson and Raymore. On Monday, 5th of June, the task force moved in and opened locker E2 to find inside 3 barrels, each marked rendered pork fat. In the first barrel, Kevin Weiner, Kansas City PD Crime Lab, finds a shoe attached to a leg when he picks it up, along with other items. 3 barrels are taken to Jackson County to be examined. On that day, John Robinson appeared on his property for the first time since the discovery. Robinson, in Prison Orange, was at the Johnson County Courthouse when he learned that his bond had been raised to $5 million. In a second press conference, DA Chris Koster announced that each of the 3 barrels found in the storage locker contained a female body. One of the bodies will be identified as Suzette Trouten, who's been missing since the 1st of March 2000. A body named Beverly Bonner would be confirmed as the first of the 3 discovered in the barrels of storage lockers on the 12th of June. John Robinson was charged with 5 counts of first-degree murder the next day, the 13th of June, for the bodies found in both Kansas and Missouri. Both states would seek the death penalty. Robinson is informally charged with 2 counts of murder in Johnson County District Court, Kansas, for the deaths of Suzette Trouten and Isabella Luica and aggravated kidnapping of Suzette. Specifically, he was charged with murdering Beverly Bonner, and the 2 women were still unidentified in the storage locker. Later, their dental records would identify them as Sheila Faith and her disabled daughter Debbie. As part of the investigation into Robinson, the FBI interviewed women at the outreach program. Levin had gathered evidence that Robinson's Equa 2 business was being used as a brothel. On the 26th of March, Robinson and his attorney, Bruce Hudeck, attended a parole violation meeting at the Missouri State Probation Office. Robinson had to answer forgery charges and consorting with someone with a criminal record. Robinson denied both charges, claiming Blattner was responsible for the check as well as not knowing that Blattner was on probation. Robinson's business at Troost Avenue remained under surveillance by the FBI. And on the 12th of June, while Robinson was away, they moved in. When they found Teresa Williams in the apartments, she thanked them for saving her from Robinson, and she began to tell them her story. In April 1985, Robinson led Teresa into prostitution, and she also agreed to allow him to become her pimp. As their relationship progressed, Robinson began to assault Teresa regularly, and soon persuaded her into a plot to frame Irv Blattner. She was told by Robinson to write a diary using dialogue he gave her. This diary culminated in her apparent murder on the 15th of June by Irv Blattner. The FBI took Teresa away from Robinson, probably saving her life, but did not move on Robinson. For 3 weeks following Teresa's apparent disappearance from Troost Avenue, with the aid of the FBI, Robinson employed a private investigator, Charles Lane, to search for Teresa. On the 10th of July 1985, she was found. Robinson instructed Charles to monitor the house where she was living to find out the cause of her walking away. However, Lane was interviewed by the FBI, and Teresa was again moved, this time well away from Robinson. Robinson was found guilty on 3 counts of violating the conditions of his parole on the 29th of July, 1985, at the Clay County Courthouse. Judge Hutchison revoked Robinson's probation on the 21st of August, forcing Robinson to serve out the remainder of his 7-year sentence behind bars. Robinson was allowed to remain on bail $250,000 during the appeal process after he filed an appeal. Robinson was successful in his appeal hearing in May 1986. Despite being on parole, Robinson was able to stay out of jail, because the decision was overturned. In January 1986, Robinson appeared in court defending a charge of felony theft while on bail pending his appeal hearing. Robinson's company Equa 2 had been commissioned by Back Care Systems International to market their range of products. The plan included publishing brochures to promote the company. The work requested by Back Care was not being completed as expected. Irv Blattner was forced by Robinson to fudge invoices, but the trick failed, landing Robinson in court. Robinson was found guilty of felony theft for $3,600 after a 3-day trial ended on the 30th of January 1986. Steve Obermeyer, the district attorney for Johnson County, observed Robinson's criminal history and convinced the judge to consider it in sentencing. Judge Herbert Walton agreed with the DA and sentenced Robinson to 5 years in addition to a fine of $5,000. Defense lawyers tried to appeal the decision, but were denied. Robinson was charged again on the 10th of July 1986, this time with 4 counts of attempted fraud in connection with a business deal with Gerhard Cootie. He paid Robinson $150,000 for the opportunity, which he later discovered that Robinson had fraudulently altered the sales contract to read $100,000 and pocketed the remainder. Despite these additional charges, Robinson remained out of custody and continued to operate his business. He hired Catherine Klimpit as his secretary in January 1987. Catherine vanished in the spring of 1987, and it was reported on the 15th of June that she was missing. Robinson was questioned, but the case was dropped for lack of evidence. Robinson surrendered himself to the Johnson County Jail on the 16th of May 1987, knowing his sentence was a minimum of 5 years. He was then transferred to the Kansas State Penitentiary in Hutchinson. During his stay at the facility, Robinson suffered a series of strokes, resulting in his partially paralyzed right side of his face. Robinson had now served the minimum time in Kansas and had been granted parole with his good behavior on the 23rd of January, 1991. However, after breaking his parole terms, Robinson was immediately handed over to Missouri prison officials to serve the remainder of his original sentence. Because of his ill health after the series of strokes, Robinson's sentence will be served at Moberly Correctional Facility. He was soon transferred again, this time to Western Missouri Correctional Center in Cameron. In the spring of 1993, he was released from jail after serving the remainder of his sentence. During John Robinson's time at the Missouri prison, Beverly Bonner was responsible for the library, and Robinson was her assistant. She and Robinson had actually met 20 years earlier when they worked at the same company in Kansas City. When Robinson was released from prison, he offered Beverly the job of running his company HydroGlow, which sold organic vegetables. Beverly accepted. Robinson set up a home in Florida. Beverly divorced her husband, Dr. William Bonner, after he found out about her